welcome. I'm Jody, and this is Quilt Squirrel, and this is my messy sewing room. And today I am working on my 1776, the red, white, and blue courthouse step quilt. And I'm putting it together. I've got it half done, or half put together, the top. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together 9 patches because this quilt is going to finish at 108 inches by 108 inches. And so there are 324 6-inch blocks, finished 6-inch blocks in this quilt, which means I've got 18 blocks across, 18 down. And the goal when I'm putting this together is I don't want to put 18 108-inch long columns together. So I don't want all them seams because this is going to be a heavy quilt. So what I've done with when I've putting together the other half, I'm looking at it behind you, is I'm putting together 9 patches, and then I'm putting the 9 patches together in 4 patches. And then these 4 patches I'm sewing together to make a whole half of the quilt. So at the end, so since I've got one whole side here done, all I've got to do is put one long 108-inch seam to put this quilt together. So I'd rather do one long seam than 18 long seams. So that's the plan. And so far it's working. And I'm becoming real good friends with my seam ripper because this is my OCD. I don't want fabrics too close to each other in the quilt. And not every 9 patch is the same. You'll see I've got one more seam left to do on here, and I'll hold it up and you can see the 9 patches aren't the same, so I gotta be really careful about how I turn my courthouse steps. And since it's a heavy quilt, at the beginning and end of each 9 patch, I'm back stitching just so my seams don't come apart when I'm putting it together. And I'm using my circa 1880 9 patches as my leader ender. So I've got 2 done so far this morning. So here's one where I'm using a whole bunch of my scraps. And this is another one that I just got done. And when I trim these, they will be 2.5 inch 9 patches. So, and I don't think you can hear me when I'm sewing, so I'll try and only talk in between stitching. And so let me finish this seam here real quick. I'm at the end, so I'm going to back stitch. And I'm going to throw my circa 1880 block through with my leader ender. Because I don't want to break thread. That's why I'm using leader ender. And so now I'm going to see if my seams line up. And they're perfect. I can show you. And so I am webbing my 9 patches together. And I'm pressing in opposite directions. So you can see this one went that way and this one's going this way. So that in the middle, let me clip my webbing stitch and I will spin that seam. And so this one's going counterclockwise. I'm going to pop the seam that direction. This one's going clockwise. I'm going to pop it this direction. finger press. And I'm not throwing thread. I got a trash can. I'm not throwing it in the floor. I'm throwing it in the trash can. So, let me finger press, and then I'll take the iron to it. Okay. And so what I do is I put weight on the ironing board and kind of tug a little, just so I don't have any fabric ironed underneath. If that makes sense. And so you can see I am spinning my inner section. So I've got this block almost pieced together. So now I've got to sew on this other row here, or column. And as you can see on my ironing surface, I iron down freezer paper, and I draw a few lines, and that's just so when I sew and I go to press like strips, I don't want to iron it and it to be wavy, so I can line up the edge of my strip and I can iron in a straight line so that my strips are straighter. So let me get this one on here. And I've got a game of bobbin chicken going on. So maybe I'll just sew until the thread's almost gone, or is gone. Let me get this on here. And as I'm sewing, I'm trying to think of what I want to do next, you know, because I'm getting that itch to start something new. So I've been thinking. And since this one will be almost done, maybe do Godzilla. I fuse together small pieces of fabric to make a picture. You throw this 9 patch through. Cut this off. And the leaders enders is just so I'm not breaking thread. I have another 9 patch. Let me spin its seam. And so when I stretch the seams, it's just so I don't iron under a crease, or sometimes when you flip fabric over and iron it, it doesn't go all the way up to the thread. So there's another one. 600 more to go. So let me look at my, and that one's not so good, so I'm going to rip this out, or just the part of this, and try and get it better. I give myself a 2 try redo rule. So if I sew something together and by the 3rd time I've sewn it and it's not right, it stays. So this will be my 2nd time through. It was just off a little, but it was enough to drive me nuts. So let me tear off these little tiny threads here. I hate seam ripping with a passion. It just slows you down. Got it all. Okay, let me start back up here a little. Cut my little 9 patch off here. Okay. See if I can see why this didn't line up very well. Okay, here we go. Second try. Gotta break my thread. That makes me mad too. Okay, now we're back online. So now my seams line up. So now I can clip my webbing. So if I don't do Godzilla next, I have a block of the month that I bought, or I was part of, back in 2023. And I started on the first block and then I stopped. And so I could start that one. It's a real pretty quilt. It's not very big. And I believe it was from a quilt shop here in Ohio. And I think it was called Olive Grace Studios. I gotta stand up to do this one. So kind of lean on it and press the seam over. Let me finish pressing this. And it was fabricpatch.net. They were doing it too. And each month what you got in the mail was, here's my 9 patch. Each month you made 2 parts of a block. One part of the block was a pieced part, and the other part was embroidery. So you got your fabric for both sides. You got the fusible interfacing that went on the back of your embroidery, and the thread for what you needed to embroider you got, and instructions on how to do each embroidery. And it was these beautiful flowers. So I got that one I could do. So let me get my other 9 patch here started. Do I like it that way or do I like it this way? This is what I'm running into is when I put these up here, I turn these around all different directions. I want to switch these out. No. This goes that way, I think. I think that's how it was. If not, that's how it is now. Okay. Let me grab my top 2. Let's see. I've got, let's see, the 9 patch, or the block of the month I could do. Let's see. Let me start this one again. I could look through my quilt idea book. Over the years, I've had subscriptions to multiple different magazines like Fons and Porter, McCall's, and sometimes I'd see other magazines in the quilt shop and I would buy one. Mm. And I was saving all the magazines, but then when you want to find something you want to do, you don't want to, or I didn't want to, go back through all my magazines to figure out where a quilt I saw was. So what I would do was I would cut out the pages of the quilt I wanted to make, and I put them in a binder. I put them in like sheet protectors. And so I've got this huge book over here with all these quilts that I want to make. And I'll never live long enough to make all of them. So I could look through that for some ideas. There's another girl at work that's pregnant. So, yeah, I'm not drinking the water. This will be the 4th girl that's pregnant. Or the other 3 already had their babies. But I made each of the 3 girls before. They were all due about the same time. I made them all little flannel quilts and these little flannel frogs. But I think this time I'm not going to make those flannel frogs. The frogs were a bear. The pattern was great. The problem I ran into was filling it with those beads. And I would go to, you like, oh, okay, it'll work. And then you'd lay it down onto the sewing machine to sew that last seam closed. And all those beads would roll out. It was a friggin' nightmare. Let's see, that one out. So these will go in. Nope, that went in. These will go out. Okay. Gotta make sure my seams match. Going opposite directions from the last one that I sewed. So I think this gal will just get the flannel quilt. They're really cute frogs, though. Okay, so that's that one. Got to sew on the next column of fabric. So there's that I could do, which I'm going to do anyway, but do I want to do that now? She's not due until, I want to say, the end of May, so I got time. And I don't have the fabric to make it yet anyway, so I can't really start on that one. So I've got the book I could go through, and I was thinking when I go through the book, maybe show you the patterns that interest me. I noticed that, like the Fons and Porter, the old Fons and Porter, I seem to gravitate more towards Liz Porter, her quilts that she would make. And some of her scrap quilts where she was part of block exchanges. Beautiful, beautiful. I love scrap quilts. I'd like to be in another block exchange, but it's hard to do that when you're not part of a guild. So trying to find people that, you know, would want to be in a block exchange is hard to find. And then you got to have someone who organizes it. I'm not an organizer. I did one time with a YouTuber, Margaret Lewin, and she did a couple block exchanges, and that was fun. Another 9 patch. So let me put this one through. Okay, which way did the other seam go? This one goes out. So what else could I do? And you guys do that too when you're finishing up a project. You're trying to think of what your next one's going to be. So this one's webbed together. I just got to sew this row to this row. And I was thinking of too, I've got this, I kind of showed it when I was going through my old UFOs or my whips. It's my world's ugliest double wedding ring. And I was using all Christmas fabrics. Well, not all. It was loosely Christmas themed. Each arc of the wedding ring had to have 2 fabrics that were considered white, 1 tan, a blue, a teal, a red, and a green. That's my OCD. All the blocks had to have those pieces in the arc. And it's ugly. But I kept making them. I got a whole shoebox full of these arches, or arcs, whatever they're called. But I've got an idea for it. Match up, yep. Spin my seams. I was also thinking of doing a medallion quilt. Maybe. I don't know what I'd put in the center. The quilt shop here used to have a medallion type quilt hanging up on their wall. And the pattern was called Miss Billingsley, I think. And I think the pattern and like the paper pieces was like $200. Yeah, not happening. But it was beautiful. So something like that would be pretty. I'd like to do a medallion quilt. I started a pink and green one, but fell out of love with it. But maybe if I did one that was like really scrappy, that might satisfy the itch for that. Let's see. I was wanting to do a red and brown quilt. Stand up for this. I started like putting red and brown fabrics together in a box. I don't know what pattern or block to do. And then when I was doing the Wensleydale, I was originally going to do it with a bunch of Civil War reproduction fabrics. And I've still got all them together. I would just need a pattern, which I could maybe find one in my quilt idea book. And I'm still working on my, I don't know if you can see it, my UFO quilt that I hand basted, and I'm hand sewing like Sue from Small Things does. I would love to be her neighbor. Just to pick her brain, you know. But I always love seeing her projects. She's really creative. But she is a true scrap quilter. Let's see, I think I got this block almost, well, it might be done. Yeah, it is done. Let me check my seams and I'll show you. I'll press this down real quick. Another 9 patch. Let me check my seams. We're good. Let me clip it and then I'll press it and I'll show you. So if you have any ideas of a project to do next, I'm curious. Are you starting a new one? I love starting new projects. Almost done here. Okay, let me press this. And there's my second 9 patch. So let me show you how they're different. See if I can get it to lay up here. Let's see, so here's my first one. You see they're different. So this one goes underneath this one. See if I can hold it up. So that's my 1776 quilt. So let me see if I can turn the camera around and show you what I've got done so far. Give you an idea. Gotta move some stuff around. Let me see. Gonna move you real quick. Okay, let me raise this up. A little bit more. Okay. Hello. Okay. So here is this block. Sorry how I'm dressed. I'm gonna be doing yard work in a few minutes. Here's the second one I did. It goes down here. So, I don't know if you can tell, this whole side here is all together. And it goes, let me hold this up here, up to the ceiling. And it goes down to the floor. It's ginormous. But yeah, I've got this whole half done. So now I'm working on this half. So then I have just this one long seam to do. But all this was done with 9 patches put into 4 patches and put together. So I'm hoping to have this done in about a week. Yeah, a week. So that's all I've got for you today. I gotta get out there and weed whack and whatnot. So I will talk to you next time. Hope it wasn't too boring. Bye for now. Stay safe.